This is just how I'm feeling, bro. So don't judge me. All right.
What is this, bro?
Some hard shit. A classic. Yo, I don't even lie. I feel like I'm off, but it's okay. It's probably just because.
You want to go up somewhere?
Nah, not really. I think I'm straight. Welcome to FPFO. That's that shit. Hey, see? Yeah, that's that shit.
I don't know.
Oh, okay, well, I'm going to let it rock for a little second, man. Again, welcome to FPFO. I'm your host, JJ.
I'm your co-host, Terrence. Welcome back.
Yeah, man, listen. It's a whole bunch of nothing going on. Like, this is the award show, so we're going to keep it awards. But it's a lot of nothing going on. Like, that's what it feels like to me. Like, honestly. I'll just be honest, but I'm not here to, be angry JJ or nothing like that. We're just going to come in. This is our award show. So a reflective moment. I mean, I would love to not even be doing this right now. I would love to be looking at going into the NFC Championship game and previewing that. But, Scott, Dave, they had other plans this year. But I'm not even on that type energy. This is just our award show, so that's what we're here to do today. So you like it?
Yeah. I mean, it's a different vibe. I don't know if I like it. Like, this wouldn't be the type that I'd be like, what's the name of this?
But this is a classic track, though. It's a classic. Okay.
I guess.
It's like, never mind.
Because when I seen the cover of it, I was like,
But you thought it was about to be some hard shit?
No.
Oh.
I knew it was going to be some bullshit when I seen the cover.
So yeah, we're gonna do our awards today. Again, this is something that we mentioned the last podcast episode that we did. That we were gonna come in here and do. Like, again, just want to kind of reflect on the season that we had. Take a look at some guys specifically that didn't necessarily get the recognition, in our opinion, league wide. Oftentimes it seems like Panthers players are overlooked.
For sure.
To a certain extent, I understand it, just solely based on the fact that we haven't been the most successful organization the last 2 decades or whatever may have you. But in that same respect, it's kind of confusing at times, and I really don't get it. Just because when you look at the numbers and things of that nature, guys on our roster really compete to a high level, and not only that, compete to a level where they're in that upper echelon of players when you look at it statistically. So again, I don't really understand it, but this is kind of our way of giving the guys that recognition and what they deserve. So this is our team awards. Again, welcome back. It's been a while, so if you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel at the G2S Network. Catch us on all DSPs, Spotify, Apple, Rumble. What's the other one? I don't even know. Anchor. All of those things. Tune in there. Again, subscribe on Rumble as well. The same thing at the G2S Network. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok at For Panthers Fans Only. And yeah, so let's get it started. So this is how we're gonna do this. This is how we're gonna do this. Okay. First, let me make sure my co-host is taken care of. I don't know what's going on. Look at this.
Yeah, me neither.
Look at this. What does this say? Hold. 1 second. It says that you on it, bro. Look. Invited.
Yeah, but it's like,
I got you, big bro. Yeah, I got you, big bro.
Unless you got to go somewhere specifically to accept invites. It ain't usually been like that.
Yeah, so. I know. That's what I know. I don't know why that happened. But this is how we're gonna go about it. So,
okay, good now.
You good now?
Yeah.
All right, bet. So, I think that I would like to do it like we give our awards together, like if that makes sense. So, say like hypothetically, I have Rookie of the Year up here on this list. and then you have Rookie of the Year as well. Like, if that makes sense. So I go and then you go type shit.
Okay.
And then, like, if some of them are the same, like, if you feel like you have the same one, then we'll just go to the next one. Cool?
Okay.
Bet. So that's where we're going to start. I'll let you lead it off.
Okay.
With your rookie, who your Rookie of the Year is.
Okay. I think for Rookie of the Year, like, I think most people would agree with this. I have to go Ick.
For sure.
What did we draft him? 8th?
Yes.
Yeah, we drafted him with the 8th pick. He came 8th pick out of NC State, so hometown guy. Came in. There was a lot of knock on his pass protection. He's really known for his run blocking, in which he was phenomenal this year. But the big thing is he improved a lot on what the draft experts knocked him on.
Right.
Which I think was pretty big this year. Outside of a couple plays here and there, he had to face a tough matchup and Myles Garrett first week. He got beat on a couple plays, but other than that, I feel like he held his own in that game. And to me, I think that he was, if not the best, one of the best linemen this year as a rookie. There can be arguments made for Bradley Bozeman and guys like that, but I mean, it just had a hell of a year personally, and so to draft a player that high that's expected to come in and perform straight off the bat, and for him to exceed those expectations is something that any team will want. And so I think that that's not a draft pick that we reached on, which feels really good to me. And he's been a very productive guy this year, and so that's my Rookie of the Year.
Facts. I agree. I have the same person. Only allowed 6 sacks, and that may sound like a lot to some people when you're comparing him to, top tier talents. But when you look at a guy that's his age, only allowing 6 sacks, playing that tackle position, that's very, very difficult to do, specifically with the matchups that he had this year. Because we like highlighting the Myles Garrett matchup, but there were that wasn't the only one, because he had to play Cam Jordan twice as well. Yeah. So, you know what I'm saying? So that in itself, is commendable in my opinion. So where he can improve, in my opinion, though, is the penalties. That's something that I definitely need to see him do better at. I was looking at it earlier. 13 total penalties from Ick this year. That's tied for first in the league. That is not going to cut it.
Yeah.
That is not going to cut it. And whoever the new coach may be, whether it be Steve Wilkes or, one of the other candidates on the list, that's going to have to be something that's addressed, because that's not going to get the job done. And at some point, again, this is just his rookie year. But at some point, okay, that's the baseline. So we definitely need to see improvement in that area.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that comes from lack of experience on the NFL level. Like, maybe more so of trying to do too much, or just really trying to have more of an impact in the game than he realizes that he already has.
Okay.
So a hold here and there, because you really are trying to emphasize protecting your quarterback.
Right.
And things of that nature. So I think it does come with experience. Now, if we happen to see the same thing next year, then that's something that we'd definitely have to dive a little more into and address. But, I mean, I think that throughout work in the offseason, because, I mean, the way you just pulled up those stats, the coaches are very well aware of that.
For sure. Absolutely.
I think that that's something that I would think that that's something that they would emphasize on and going into the offseason.
Yeah.
So I hope not to see that problem next year. And I don't think that it will be that big of a problem, but we shall see.
For sure. So okay, so we're one for one.
Okay.
In agreement. But I already know that this is when things take a turn, like, for the absolute worst. And I think that we may have one more on this list that we agree on, and that's it. No cap.
Yeah. Okay.
But we're gonna see. So I'm gonna start this one off. My defensive player of the year this year is J.C. Horn. I think that, again, like I opened in saying, the recognition for Carolina Panthers players is just not there. I don't understand how J.C. Horn was not on the All-Pro team.
Yep.
I don't understand how J.C. Horn was not selected to the Pro Bowl. I don't get it. I really, really don't. You take a look at what this guy did and what he did even last year. Now, I know last year it was an extremely small sample size, but you look at this year, he played, 15 games, I want to say? 15 games this year, only allowed 23 catches, which was the fewest in the NFL, only allowed 216 yards, which was the fewest in the NFL, 0 touchdowns, and a 39.4 passer rating, which was the lowest in the NFL. So, I don't know where, these experts and all of these people that select these teams and things of that nature, the writer, I don't know where they're looking, because I know on that list there were names, and I'm not even going to be on that energy, but there were names, in my opinion, that J.C. Horn is light years ahead of when it comes to technique, when it comes to, again, the statistics don't lie. He was the best in allowing catches, the best in yardage allowed, and the lowest passer rating. And by the way, didn't allow a touchdown. I mean, I don't see how he's not a top 2, if not number 1, realistically, cornerback in the NFL right now. I don't get it. A lot of I've been on Twitter all year. Again, we know that on Twitter all year, and there's this thing with Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn, and those guys are bunched together because of the year that they were drafted and the positioning of them being drafted and things of that nature. But to me, J.C. Horn is a far better talent than Patrick Surtain.
So my defensive player of the year, so it was a little debate, like, coming in here, on the way here, as I was thinking about it, because, like, I really want to give this to, in my head, I wanted to give it to 3 people. I really okay. did, but it's just no way you can do that. And so my defensive player of the year goes to Frankie Louisville.
Okay, man. Okay. Cool.
And I say that because, I mean, the numbers he put up is, like, kind of, I'm not going to say unheard of, but in a sense they are, given the situation that he was in last year, given the situations that he's been in previous years. Last year he played a significant role, but he wasn't a starter. But I think that everybody seen his energy coming in and knew that this year he would be a starter. I didn't necessarily expect this kind of year from him. And then it ended up being a phenomenal year for him, and then he ended up being snubbed from the All-Pro list. I will say that.
Embarrassing.
And so just to read out his stats, he finished with 111 tackles, 19 TFLs, tackles for loss, if you don't know that, 7 sacks and 2 picks, and 1 was a pick 6, I think. And so that year, that just those stats alone, outside of you just watching the game and just really seeing the kind of effort he puts in game in and game out, I think that warrants him to be the defensive player of the year. Although it was a toss-up between him, Brian Burns, and J.C. Horn, because I think all 3 of those guys play a very big role in our defense, are the best players on our defense. And but when you just take into account his past and how much he has improved this year over the past couple of years, he kind of like took over that leader role. And that's something that we didn't see from Shaq Thompson this year that we would have loved to see. Which Shaq Thompson didn't have a bad year according to numbers, but if you sit down and watch the games, like, that's something that me and JJ was on his ass a lot this year.
Yeah, for sure.
Just for, like, the lack of effort on a lot of plays, and which you didn't really get that from Frankie. Which he missed a couple plays here and there, but who hasn't? And so,
right.
But I just think with the numbers, my defensive player of the year has to go to Frankie Louisville.
Cool. I'm proud.
And I know you didn't think that was coming, did you?
Nope, I did not. I did not. I'm proud of you. Look at us, man. So you on the Frankie hype train now?
I mean, I'm not. I wouldn't go get a jersey or nothing, but I mean, I would like to see Frankie in the Carolina uniform for a long time. I would say that.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. So let's go to offensive player of the year. My offensive player of the year this year, and this is, I think that we may agree on this one, and this was the one that I said that maybe this one was going to be it, and maybe the second to last one, but we'll see. But my offensive player of the year this year is DJ Moore. I think if you look at what this guy did with, 3 quarterbacks, for one, just going all the way back to the beginning of the season, just really an offense that was bullshit, if we're being transparent. An offense that really could not move the football, with a quarterback that was really mud. No good, really, if we're just being completely honest. Like, Six went over and did whatever he did with LA and did all of that stuff. Like, I mean, it was cute for the time being, but again, a guy that really at this point in his career is no longer an NFL talent, in my opinion. And then he did it with a guy that, we love P.J. Walker. Well, I'll speak for me. I love P.J. Walker. I love his story. But again, another guy that is arguably not necessarily an NFL talent, maybe a practice squad guy if you put him place him on a different roster in a different city and things of that nature. Really, I mean, a CFL type guy, CFL type quarterback, with all due respect. I mean, so he did it with him, and then again, we know the story about Sam Darnold. I believe this was Sam Darnold's best year of his career. Just the comfort level that he played with, the way he was able to execute, the way he protected the football, given the Tampa Bay game or whatever may have you. But with him going through 3 quarterbacks and still putting up 888 yards, a career high in touchdowns, didn't miss any. Did he miss a game? What did he miss? One game?
Who, DJ?
DJ? I don't know if he missed one game, maybe.
I think he might have missed one.
Because I know that Seattle game he left early with the injury, but yeah. I'm not sure if he ever had a DNP. He had no DNPs this year. So, I mean, that alone, in my opinion, speaks volumes. A guy, again, if you know me personally, Terrence has spoken on this as well. I've spoken about it on this podcast. DJ has not been my favorite player, for the Carolina Panthers, and that's saying it nicely. I haven't really necessarily been a huge DJ Moore fan, but I will say I think that I saw a huge step in his maturity level this year. I think that, again, when you're able to put up those stats, 888 yards and 7 touchdowns with 3 different quarterbacks and a very, very subpar offense throughout the first 6 weeks of of your schedule, I think, in my opinion, that speaks volumes to the talent that you are. And again, I think that what really made him grow on me and what really made me buy into, that DJ Moore is like a true wide receiver one and DJ Moore is our guy, is the fact that he was able to overcome the adversity and take that step as a leader, in my opinion. He's not one of those guys that's going to be vocal. We know that. But I think that his play was a leader-like or a leader-level-like performance, so to speak. So that is my player of the year, or my offensive player of the year, and I'm excited to see what we're going to see from DJ Moore in the future, because we need a quarterback. So when you get a quarterback and you put that quarterback in that system, or we can get, again, hypothetically, we re-sign Sam Darnold, what a full year those 2 guys will look like should Sam Darnold continue to play the way we saw him play the last 6-7 weeks of the season.
Yep. And, yeah, with that being said, my offensive player of the year is going to Deontay Foreman.
Great pick.
I think when you just, take into account his story, you go looking at that, it's a great story. A lot of people didn't know who Deontay Foreman was, and I think the reason that some people might have is because he was the backup to Derrick Henry when Derrick Henry went out for the year with that injury. A lot of people was just taken by surprise, being that Tennessee had a backup running back who was kind of like the same build as Derrick Henry, looked alike in a sense as far as the dreads and stuff like that. So that's when a lot of people found out about him, but I don't think people were really paying attention to it. So we had signed him. Did we sign him in the offseason?
Yeah, we signed him. Yeah, we signed him in the offseason.
Yeah, we signed him in the offseason. At that time, we had Christian McCaffrey, Chuba Hubbard, and he came in getting 2 attempts a game, 2 attempts the first game, 2 attempts the second game. 1 the third game, 2 the fourth game, and 5 the fifth game. And then after we got rid of C-Mac, he took over that starting role. And he came in and ran the ball like a true running back one. And he ended the season with 914 yards on the ground, and 5 touchdowns. And like I said, I named out those numbers, those attempts he was getting the first couple of games, and for him to still be 80 some yards for cracking the 1,000-yard mark, being that he did get ejected in the last game, just speaks a lot to what he has brought to this team and to this offense. And Steve Wilkes, when he came in as head coach, he said that we're going to be a run-heavy offense, and that's the kind of offense that we're going to establish, and that's the play style that we're going to run with going forward. And I don't think you can necessarily do that with any other guy outside of a Deontay Foreman, someone that you can give the ball to 20 times a game, and who's going to run the ball hard, who's going to pick up a lot of yards, who's going to tire out defenses. And that's what Deontay Foreman came in and did. And so I think that he really changed the trajectory of the season, of the team, in the direction that they were heading, outside of Steve Wilkes coming in and doing a phenomenal job as interim head coach. I just think Deontay Foreman came in and just really kicked the door down when he got that opportunity, because, it would have been easy for us to get a job to Chuba Hubbard, because he's been there 2 years. He was backing up Christian McCaffrey. So most would think your running back 1 leaves, then your running back 2 takes that place. But Deontay Foreman came in. I guess he beat him out in practice, and then we seen the evidence in the game. And so, yeah, with that being said, he's my offensive player of the year. He had a hell of a season, and the offseason is going to look shaky this year, I feel like, for a lot of positions. And so, but he's one of the guys that I hope we sign back. I heard Scott Fitterer talking, and he said that he is one of the guys that they reached out to about a contract extension, and those are one of the guys that he would like to have back as well. And so, with some more preparation throughout the offseason, fitting into learning the offense a little more, having a full offseason to prepare for our offense, I think he's gonna do great next year if we continue to have him on the team. And so, yeah, Deontay Foreman is my offensive player of the year.
Facts. I like that pick. That's a great pick. And like you said, I think the biggest supporting, argument to that, like you said, is the fact that, throughout the first 5 games, the dude had less than 10 touches.
Yeah.
and the fact of the matter, or just the fact of that he was able to nearly crack 1,000 yards with, only 12 games played, really. Like, if we're just being honest, only 12 games played, almost rushed for 1,000 yards. That's crazy.
Yeah.
If we're not able to make that splash in the offseason, then I think that I'm comfortable with Deontay Foreman coming back, and us giving it another shot with that 3-back set, with that 3-back room, because that Deontay Foreman had a very, very impressive year.
Yeah,
I agree.
For sure.
This is when shit gets fun. This is when shit gets fun. So let's go here. Who is your most disappointing player this year?
Most disappointing player. That can go to because I want to make sure that I want to get the criteria right, because I can give it to a few people.
Okay.
Would it be most disappointing if we expected them to have these certain expectations to play like a certain player, and we expected a certain level of play out of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it's definitely a subjective award. I think all of them are, but this one more so than any, because you can almost go by any criteria you want to. But I think that's a good baseline of what I meant when I said most disappointing. Yes.
Okay. I would say, going off of that, I think I would have to go Derrick Brown.
Wow, okay.
I think I would have to go Derrick Brown.
Okay.
And Derrick Brown is a hell of a player. he's a player that, I will want in a Carolina uniform for a long time to come. I think that he is a future star in this league, and it might sound like I'm contradicting my statement, but he had a hell of a season going forward. Well, the start of the season. Mm-hmm. I think he played great the start of the season, and then he just kind of fell off. It was a point where we needed the most out of our defense, and we just wasn't getting that up front with the defensive line. So, I mean, that blame goes around to a lot of guys, but when you're a star caliber player like Derrick Brown, I just think that, you can't have that start of the season where you're going crazy and then it just kind of falls off when we need you the most. Yeah. And so that would be my most disappointing player. I could have went C.J. Henderson, or I could have went Keith Taylor, but did I really expect anything out of them? No, because I didn't really expect them to be on the field. So I can't really go there, but I will say I did expect more out of Derrick Brown towards the middle to the end of the year, and JJ came in and made that Aaron Donald comparison. And so, I mean,
that was absolutely blasphemous.
Yeah, and I think that got a lot of people talking, or a lot of people thinking, and I'm in one of those. I'm in that category. And so, when you come out and make those kind of statements, like, now I gotta watch you. And so, and now, and I didn't see that. Like, at the beginning of the year, okay, like, yeah, that was all nice and dandy, but towards the end of the year or middle of the year, then I just needed to see more, and it just wasn't there. And so I would say he was the most disappointing player for me.
Cool. I'm not mad at that. I did make that statement. I can come in here and tell you in hindsight that was absolutely ridiculous for me to say. Though he was your most disappointing, I will say it was good to see him improve. He did get involved with on a lot more plays or whatever, but I do agree with you. He was one of those guys that later on down the stretch in the season, when we needed a big play from just somebody, when we needed energy, Derrick Brown was MIA.
Yeah.
Derrick Brown was MIA. I was just looking at his stat sheet. There was a couple of games where just one tackle. Just one tackle. To me, as a defensive tackle, that just can't be the case. I mean, take a look here, and it happened consecutively. We played against Baltimore, a run-heavy team. Yeah. To me, there's no way you only get one tackle. To me, that's a lack of effort, I'll be honest. Now, I know that you can scheme and you can do all of this, but I think that people were way more concerned with scheming against Brian Burns than they were with Derrick Brown. So seeing that one against Baltimore in a run-heavy offense, that doesn't get the job done.
When they only put up 13 points.
When they only put up 13 points in that same breath, exactly. Yeah. Had a one against Denver, had a one against Seattle, had a one against Detroit. So I can understand and see where you're coming from with that being your most disappointing. I'm not mad at that at all. For me, mine is C.J. Henderson. I know that you said that, you wasn't really expecting him to be on the field. And I guess I could second that to a certain degree. But in that same breath, I kind of was expecting him to be on the field a good amount, because I thought we were going to use him as our nickel in those three defensive back sets, kind of. So with him having the year that he had, to me, I'm extremely disappointed. I'll be honest. We brought him in last year, played 10 games with us then, had a full season this year, had a huge opportunity, really. In my opinion, C.J. Henderson could have changed the trajectory of his NFL career with this season.
For sure.
We had J.C. Horn go down. Now, given that was towards the end of the year. But Dante Jackson earlier in the season. So you have the opportunity to become, a top-level cornerback too. Because C.J. Henderson was drafted high. Let me see what his draft position was.
I think he was drafted 9th. I want to say he was drafted.
And I think that's right. That's what I had in my brain, but I didn't want to say it without confirmation. So, he got drafted by Jacksonville. Things didn't pan out there. We took a chance on him last year. Didn't really see much, but it left you hopeful to a certain degree, because what the experts and things of that nature had him ranked at, or where they had him ranked at coming into, his NFL career, to start his NFL career. And then you thought maybe, with the system like we play, with a guy like Steve Wilkes that has influence over, how his technique is managed and things of that nature, what defense is being run, etc. I personally was looking for a big leap from C.J. Henderson, and that just simply did not happen. Again, he had the opportunity. It was right within reach, in my opinion. You had Dante Jackson go down. You were the next man up, and he simply just did not get the job done, which is unfortunate from a fan standpoint and a personal standpoint for him, because really, I personally don't know where C.J. Henderson goes after this. I do believe that C.J. Henderson is an NFL talent. I don't think I know we've been emotional in saying different on this show, but when you calm down, when you take all the emotions away and you just look at the player and you look at the film, I still believe C.J. Henderson is a NFL talent, but I think it's going to be very hard for him to wipe this stain off of his resume. I'll be honest, because this year to me was very, very disappointing, and I was expecting a lot more.
Yeah, because, he did have a few big games this year where he caught a few picks and things of that nature. So there was flashes of him like that he can be a CB2. Mm-hmm. He can be a CB3. So, like you said, I don't disagree that he can still play in the NFL, because I think he can. But, at a certain point, it's just like you were drafted ninth. You got traded then after like 9 games or something like that. And so at that point, you're just underperforming. When I say this, I don't mean to be harsh, but in a sense, you've been disappointing your whole career.
Yeah.
And that's just the fact of the matter. Like, if you go and look at where he was drafted and where he is now to where he was competing for a cornerback 3 spot on our team, it's just not good enough, honestly. But he did have a few good games this year, but it just wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
So I agree with that.
For sure. Moving on. Who is your most improved player?
Most improved player. Mm-hmm. I don't think I didn't really have a lot of time to
yeah, I kind of threw you on the spot for that
to think about this, but my most improved player would have to go to Terrace Marshall.
Okay.
And that's because he got a bad rap from Matt Rule.
He did.
And we know Matt Rule is no longer the coach here, thank God. But yeah, Matt Rule completely shitted on him, made it seem like he didn't know how to play, and just made it seem like he just wasn't cut out to be what he is. But Terrace Marshall, it was a lot of games where he was the only bright spot in the game as far as the receiving core goes. He made a lot of big plays this year, and I think he improved a lot from last year, not really being on the field. And Steve Wilkes gave him that opportunity, and he made the most of it, in my opinion. And so, yeah, my most improved would have to go to Terrace Marshall Jr. I think with a little more development and just knowing that he has a prominent role on the team, then I just think the sky is the limit for him. And I think that although I want us to go get another receiver, if we don't, then I think that after a offseason of training, continuing to get better, I'm okay with him being our wide receiver too.
Fair.
Yeah, I think I can see that happening if he improves throughout the offseason.
Yeah. And I think, for me personally, I think that there's nowhere else for him to go but up.
Yeah.
Because you just touched on the previous regime and, their approach with him.
Yeah.
In my opinion, he never had a fair shot. I don't really know what, was going on behind closed doors with that whole Matt Rule and Terrace Marshall situation. I don't know. But again, it just seems like he was never given a fair shot. He was drafted last year, came in, only had 17 catches this year. We saw a slight improvement with 28 catches. He did have 490 yards and a touchdown. But I am interested to see what he's able to do, like you said, with the full offseason, what we perceive now to be a fair chance to compete for that wide receiver 2 role. And another year of understanding the offense or just a full offseason of understanding the offense and, like you said, how he fits in and things of that nature. So I like that pick. Like you said, he did come up with a couple of big time plays. The most recent, in my opinion, being against the Detroit Lions with that crazy catch that he made over the defensive back. So I'm interested to see. For me, mine is going to be Miles Hartsfield. I saw Miles Hartsfield get substantially better throughout the season. I know when, Miles Hartsfield earlier in the season, when he first stepped on the field for the Carolina Panthers, me and you both were not happy and not having it. But as time went on, he showed significant progress, and he made leaps and bounds, in my opinion. So my award for that specific category is going to go to Miles Hartsfield. I'm interested to see where I don't know what his contract is. I would assume, just given the circumstances, if he is a free agent this year, I would assume that he wouldn't necessarily be a priority. And I don't mean to say that, I'm not trying to be an asshole about it or anything like that. But if you look at our roster and the things that, we need to address and his performance, I'm not sure if that is the case that he's going to be a priority. But I'm interested to see where his career takes him. I am. Let's see. And he does have another year on his rookie contract. So we'll see. I'm interested to see, again, another guy that was kind of put in a tough predicament due to injuries and had to learn on the fly to a certain degree.
Yeah, I agree.
A younger guy, again, a lot of change. It's hard to really judge, in my opinion. It's hard to judge this season based on the amount of turnover that we had, based on the situation. It's a lot of negative that was into outside things that went into this season that guys had to overcome. So it's admirable, but at the same time, it's like it's hard to really judge because I need to see what you're going to look like with a competent coaching staff and somebody that's coming in with a clean slate, or maybe not even necessarily a clean slate. Should it be Steve Wilkes, but a guy that has a clear direction in what he wants to do, and that demands respect. So my most improved is going to be Miles Hartsfield. Special teams player of the year. To me, there's only two answers to this, but I'll let you go first. This one was kind of like, I just threw this one in here, but I was interested to see what you were going to say.
I say it can be two answers, but to me, it's one, which is Sam Franklin. Yeah. I think that me and JJ have came in and just talked a lot about his improvement. Really, JJ brought it to my attention. But if you go look, like, any special teams play, like Sam Franklin is usually the first one down the field on punt, usually in the tackles on kickoff. And so I just feel like he just plays with a lot of energy. And if nobody else will, he'll go down the field and hit you.
For sure.
And so that's what I like about Sam Franklin. Like, he's not scared to be that aggressor. He's not scared to take that penalty. But he's really a player that just goes on the field and just plays hard. And even though, like, a lot of people don't value special teams as something that's, like, really significant, but I think it can be hard on a player to want to be a starter on the field, want to be a starter in the secondary, but he really takes pride in his role on special teams. And I think that the team notices, the players notice, and even the fans notice if you watch the games closely. And so I think that special teams would not have, like, at the beginning of the season, special teams looked a little shaky. We came in here shitting on special teams just because we felt like it was a lack of effort.
Yep.
People wasn't really putting in a lot of effort. But as Sam Franklin started to get rolling, and which I think he was doing that at the start of the season, but once he got the players behind him and players could see that, this guy's giving 100% every snap. Every snap he's on special teams. He's not taking that for granted. And I think that once the players alongside of him start to buy in, special teams start to look significantly better throughout the year. And I think that credit has to go to Sam Franklin.
Yeah.
So he's my special teams player.
I agree. Sam Franklin is Sam Franklin, if you remember, probably 2 weeks ago, I want to say either 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were talking about different offseason scenarios. It was probably 2 weeks ago, our last episode. Actually, no, it was 3 weeks ago. But irregardless, Sam Franklin is one of those guys, to me, he's like Frankie Louvu in the sense that he's a special teams guy. And this is why I brought up that scenario when I was asking you, what should we do at safety? Should we move Jeremy Chin back down, or should, things would have to happen in order for Sam Franklin to get his shot, in my opinion. But this is why I asked that, because Frankie Louvu was the same way last year. You know what I'm saying? A guy that every single special teams play, he's around the football, seems to be the first one down the field, seems to be, not really caring about the penalties, just trying to give his team a spark in any way he can, and just playing with 110% effort. So that's why I posed that question. Would you be fine, or would you be willing to give Sam Franklin a shot in that role just based on what you've seen special teams wise? Because I think that your effort speaks a lot to the player that you are and the player that you can be.
Yeah.
So I would agree with that. I was at a crossroads. For me personally, I was at a crossroads because I think that we were very, very tough on Eddie Pinheiro. Very, very tough on him due to the situation that we felt, he put us in the Atlanta game, which to me, transparently, I still feel the same way. But the way he bounced back, the way he shook back, it is very, very commendable. And I would say, I would challenge you to just go look at Brett Maher and the way he completely broke down 2 weeks ago, missing 4 or 5 PATs. And then even yesterday in the game against the San Francisco 49ers, or 2 days when you guys hear this, even the PAT that he had that was blocked, I think Greg Olsen did a phenomenal job in breaking down that kick and showing that even if that one wasn't blocked, he was going to miss that one as well. So I think that, the way Eddie Pinheiro was able to take that, take that blame, do whatever, hear all of the outside noise, and bounce back and have the rest of the season that he did with, not missing any more field goals. Very, 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 very impressive. And the Carolina Panthers front office will have a decision to make, in my opinion, come next year. Because, again, like you've mentioned and like I've mentioned on this podcast, we still do have Zane Gonzalez roster. Yeah. And I think that I think Eddie Pinheiro made it extremely difficult just for you to disregard him. Yeah. I really do. I have his stats pulled up here. 94% from 94% just field goals in general. So that number is number 6 in the league. PAT 93.8, and that came from obviously the Atlanta game. So I don't really necessarily hold that against him any more than I've already voiced on this, on this podcast already. So that in itself, again, put him at 29th. So not the best in that department, but again, 6th overall, just from field goals in general, not extra points. His longest was 54, tied for 23rd. So again, not a huge leg, but consistent. He accounted for 129 points, which also put him tied for 6th in the NFL. So Eddie Pinheiro made it very, very hard for me. Ultimately, I landed on the same guy as Sam Franklin, but I felt as though we would be doing ourselves and Eddie a disservice if we didn't acknowledge, his play this year, because we were very, very tough on him after that Atlanta game for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Eddie, he played great. He responded great after that game. And so, yeah, I definitely see him as an honorable mention. I was also thinking of Johnny Hecker as well.
Absolutely.
Because he has been a great addition to our team. I think that's another guy that got snubbed from the Pro Bowl, from All-Pro. I don't think he made the All-Pro list. Nope. But he just put the defense in a phenomenal position. Yes. He did that he did that game in and game out. Just really allowed the defense to play with a whole field. And I think that if you go back and look at our kickers from the past, like, that's something that we didn't really get from them. And so I think when you have a kicker like Johnny Hekker who can pin a team within the 5, 10, 20-yard line, that's going to go a long way throughout the game. That's going to, put more trust in your coaches to punt the ball because you know that your punter is going to put you in a great position for your defense to come out and have the whole field behind them and more opportunities to get off the field. And so that's why I think Johnny Hekker would have been up there as one of my special teams players of the year. But, I have to roll with Sam Franklin and then Eddie Panera as well. So
facts. So we got two more. We'll save MVP for last.
Okay.
Because I'm interested. I think that I know where you're going to go, but I'm interested to hear your support and details, so to speak. Like I said, I feel like I know where you're going to go, but you surprised me already on this list, so
yeah,
we'll see. Best coaching job. Go ahead.
I would think
you seem eager, so go ahead.
No, I would think that would have to go to Steve Wilkes. He really turned the whole organization around this year. Came in, we had a 1-5 record. Ended the season, he went 500. Had the team in the position to make the playoffs. There was a little bit of inconsistency throughout the season, but I don't think that's something that we can necessarily hold him to the fire for. Yes, you want to see him be more aggressive in certain situations. You want to see him when you have opportunities to win the game. You want to see the coach who's going to take the chances. But I think that he really turned the whole organization around, and that's what has put the organization in the bind now of trying to find a head coach, which I don't get our thinking behind interviewing all of these head coaches, but we won't get into that right now. But I think that Steve Wilkes will make a great head coach for a lot of teams in this league. He had the players bought in. He had the fans bought in. He had, like I said, he gave us a chance to potentially make the playoffs. And the organization was behind him. And so for a coach to come in under those circumstances in just the position that he had the team in, I just think that the best coaching job has to go to Steve Wilkes, in which my honorable mention would have been Ben McAdoo. As much as I shitted on the guy and really still not really all bought in on him as well, but I think that he did a phenomenal job as well down the stretch, which I think that Steve Wilkes did play a big part in that as well. But to have most of the coaching staff leave or fired and then him being the odd one out and we keeping him, and because I was under the impression that, like, if Matt Rule got fired, that his coordinator would go with him and Ben McAdoo instead of Phil Snow. But, I think he did a phenomenal job calling plays down the stretch. But, yeah, all in all, the coaching job of the year has to go to Steve Wilkes. And I think that if he had a whole season to work with the team, then we would have been in the playoffs. And I think that if that would have happened, then he would have also been in the conversation for Coach of the Year as well. And I've also seen, like, some analysts and stuff say that, he still has to get consideration for that, even though our record doesn't show that. But given the situation that he was in, then, that's just the matter of the fact that, he did a phenomenal job this year with the team. And so that's my Coach of the Year.
Facts. Yes, I agree. I agree with everything that you said. I think that he should be up I think that he should be in the conversation for Coach of the Year. Now, do I think he deserves to get it? No. Yeah. Only because, we're giving this guy a lot of credit. And I say that being a huge Steve Wilkes fan, but he did come in, he only went 6-6. But I think that the reason why we put a lot of, admiration on his name is simply based on the fact that he rejuvenated the city, it seems.
Yeah.
He rejuvenated the fan base. He rejuvenated the team. So when you look at that, you look at where we were and the feeling that I know that me and you both had, you look at all of those things and take those into consideration. Steve Wilkes is a hell of a coach.
Yeah.
Steve Wilkes is a hell of a coach. That to me is undisputable. I'll say that. My Coach of the Year is James Campen, who is the offensive line coach. And the reason why he gets my award for that category is because, for one, the offensive line has been a huge problem for the Carolina Panthers for the past decade to decade and a half.
For sure.
And when you look at this team and this season as a whole, the offensive line really has been or was the most consistent part about this team. Even with, the different quarterbacks that came in, Christian McCaffrey leaving or being traded away, however you want to say it, the offensive line never wavered and remained the same. And I think that speaks to their coach. We brought in a couple of different pieces, moved a couple of guys around here and there. Ultimately, somebody had to be there putting that thing together and making sure everything, went according to plan, so to speak.
Yeah.
And when you finish top 10 nearly in every category, offensive line-wise, I think that, the job that he's done, James Campen, was absolutely tremendous, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. Because when we had the other quarterback, a lot of people were shitting on the offensive line, saying he didn't have time, and they're the reason that passes are getting batted down. But, they just completely proved that to be wrong.
Yeah.
When you, at a certain point in the year, week after week, you're leading in every statistical category for that week offensive line-wise, that just really puts all of those accusations to shit.
Yeah.
And so, and like you said, like, as a Carolina Panthers fan, like, back in the day, we always had a problem with the offensive line.
Yeah.
That was something that we always wanted to improve on. It just seemed to never happen. Mm-hmm. But, I think he came in and did a phenomenal job with the offensive line, with Ick, Bradley Bowles, man. Like, a lot of guys that, I hadn't really heard of, like a Brady Christian and guys of that nature. He really came in and just changed the whole offensive line around. That's one of the reasons why we were able to go to a run-heavy team.
Yep.
Because in order to do that, you have to have guys up front that can block.
Yes.
And those guys, they did a hell of a job blocking, getting downfield, and things of that nature. So I agree with that.
Facts. Okay. Let's wrap it up. It's on you. Who's your MVP?
I feel like JJ think I'm going to go to a certain person, which I already know who his MVP is because, he didn't mention the guy and none of the other things. But my MVP is JC Horn.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. My MVP is JC Horn. And I won't really get into all the stats JJ named because, those are already there for you. Just go and do your research. When you have a guy that wants to be on the best player on the field, that speaks volume to who that guy is. His first year, he broke his foot, and so he wasn't able to play. He played, 1 or 2 games. So we didn't really know what to expect from JC. We all had in the back of our minds that he was that caliber guy, that he was going to be great, and he came and did just that. He's really a lockdown corner, and he has a knack for the ball in the air. To have a corner who can get physical with you, jam you off the line, but also go make a play when the ball is in the air and have sure hands to get an interception, I think that just speaks a lot to what he has done this year. He was one of the guys the guy that held the defense together. And when you go and look at the games that he was out, when you go and look at that Tampa Bay game, they torched our corners. Mm-hmm. And MVP to me is like, obviously most valuable player, but what does your team look like when that player is not on the field? When he's not on the field, we look like shit. That's just evident. When he's not on the field, we get torched. We get torched on the back end. We seen horrible games from Keith Taylor. We seen horrible games from C.J. Henderson. But it's hard to find a bad game from J.C. Horn. It's hard to find a bad game from J.C. Horn. It's hard to find a game where a receiver just went and had his way with J.C. Horn. Facts. You're not going to find that.
Facts.
And so that really solidified my decision, especially that Tampa Bay game when Tom threw for over 400. Mike Evans had over 200 yards. Like, that shit would not have happened with J.C. Horn on him. I'm sorry to say that shit would not have happened. That would not have went down that way. And if J.C. Horn would have played, we might have been in the playoffs. There's a very strong chance we would have been in the fucking playoffs. And so,
right.
with that being said, I mean, most valuable player has to go to JC. I mean, I could say Brian Burns, but I mean, to me, the reason why Brian Burns didn't get an award is not because his lack of play. It's simply because, I mean, the kind of year he had, I expect that out of Brian Burns. Your contract year, go and make your money. He had 12.5 sacks, top 10 in sacks this year. So, I mean, I could have went that way, but, I mean, I had to look at the bigger picture. And where teams beat us the most was with our shitty cornerback play when J.C. Horn wasn't on the field. And so that's who my MVP is.
Yeah. Cool. That's surprising. That surprised me. I ain't gonna lie. You already know where I'm going with it.
Yeah, I already know.
You already know where I'm going with it. But, I mean, shit. It can't. What I will say, though, what I like in your, synopsis there was the fact that you said what the team looked like when they weren't on the field. And so when you say it like that, I mean, J.C. Horn wasn't a part of 2 games, which, that's a huge upgrade from only being available for 2 games or 3 games, whatever it was. But I like that. I like that stance, and I like that pick because most valuable player, yeah, that is. I respect that decision. I respect that. I respect that candidate. You almost make me want to change my list around. You almost make me want to change my list around just based on the way you worded it and the way you put it. But my MVP is Frankie Louvu. Terrence, I just know Terrence is just hating right now, but it's okay. Like you mentioned earlier, what?
I was about to say, I mean, I gave the guy Defensive Player of the Year, so it's not in a way that I'm hating. I just feel like, I mean.
You just be feeling like I'm dicking you.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Lack of better words, yes.
Fair enough. Again, another guy like we talked about earlier, and like you said, you did give him his Defensive Player of the Year, so I won't really, jump too heavy in on the stats. I'll just reemphasize them real quick. A guy that we really, in my opinion, us as a collective, fan base wise, we really weren't expecting a lot from Frankie Louvu. We knew he was a special teams guy, but he was really never an upper echelon linebacker. But I think that he came in and completely dismantled that narrative completely. Again, what was it, 119?
I think 111, yeah.
111, 19 TFLs, 7 sacks, created 2 turnovers with the forced fumble against the New Orleans Saints, then an interception, a pick 6 against
Arizona.
Yes. And he is another guy, kind of, to me, and I said this throughout the year, that I could feel when Frankie Louvu wasn't on the field. And that will kind of support that what you said what does your team look like when you're not on the field? For me personally, I could feel when Frankie wasn't on the field. And, a lot of people will say that's because that's your favorite player, like that's who you're looking for, et cetera, et cetera. But no, because I feel like though my love for Frankie Louvu has been voiced significantly on this podcast, I also know that if you know me, you know that I'm a huge football guy, right? So I'm able to, though I can come on here and say this and that, when we're doing something like this, I'm able to take that bias away. And I could feel it. I think that his impact on the field is significant. I feel as though the Carolina Panthers would be making a huge mistake to not attempt to extend him this offseason. And I predict that after next year, he will be getting a huge bag. There's no way that Frankie Louvu doesn't improve. Again, another one of those people, like we talked about with J.C. Horn on this podcast and how I opened up, another one of those guys that have a lot more sexy stat line than these other all-pros and Pro Bowlers. Again, I will never understand it. I really won't. I'll never understand it. But Frankie Louvu is my team MVP this year. I think he had a hell of a year, and I'm interested to see what the rest of his career will look like for one, but on a smaller scale, what he'll look like next year. when we do whatever we're gonna do draft wise and all season wise and all of this, it's been exhausting.
Yeah,
it's been exhausting already, and I'm gonna save this for the next thing that we do. But this whole thing has been extremely exhausting, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I guess to support your argument, we did lose the 2 games that he didn't play, but I mean, I don't think he would have really made a big difference because we lost to San Fran and we lost to the Rams, but we just completely – that Rams game plan, I don't know what that was, but we did lose those games that he wasn't on the field, so kind of in the same boat with JC.
For sure. And also, another supporting detail, I guess you could say, is that whole 100 tackles or more than 100 tackles and more than 7 sacks, like that in itself hasn't been done in 21 years. So, like, how this guy couldn't be an all-pro, how this guy isn't a Pro Bowler, I don't understand. And I'm not going, I'm not even going to get into it like that, but I don't get it. Like, I understand that we're not one of those franchises that has a huge following, a huge fan base. We don't have the Super Bowls that, these other franchises and teams do or whatever. But at some point, the respect has to be given.
And that's simply the reason. Like, really, that's all I could boil it down to, because I was telling one of my boys that the other day as I was reading out the stats, because he thought I was crazy when I was like, oh, Frankie Louvu got snubbed from the All-Pro list. Yeah. But then that same list that we both have, and just reading out the stats versus those guys that did make it, he was like, oh, yeah, that's wild. And so I think it just simply boils down to what team he plays for. Because, I mean, if he was playing on a team like Baltimore or Cincinnati or the Chiefs or the Eagles, like one of those teams that's solidified in the league, then he would have made an All-Pro list easily. He would have made the Pro Bowl easily. But it's simply because he plays for the Carolina Panthers, which is a sad reality. But we just don't have respect in the league. Yeah. It just really boils down to that. Because, I mean, if you go and look at stats like that and just say that, oh, that's nothing, that guy shouldn't be up for any kind of award. He shouldn't be recognized on any type of level as far as All-Pro or Pro Bowl. Like, it's just complete bullshit. So
yeah, I agree. And that gets exhausting as well. But this is the life that we chose, brother.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is the life that we chose. But that is all I have. Again, this was our award show, I guess you could say. But I enjoyed it. I will say, bro, you surprised me. You surprised me with a couple of your picks. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I'm very surprised Brian Burns didn't end up on your list somewhere.
I mean, I already know that he's just that guy, so I feel like I don't have to come in and really say that. Because, I mean, the other day as I was naming out the tackles and shit like that, more than the players that you try to compare him to, your guys and shit like that, like, he just really shitted on them this year. That's all I have to say regarding that. Like, with tackles, he didn't have as many sacks as them, but if you hear from some people, he doesn't do anything on the field. Like, he doesn't make that big of an impact. But the stats say otherwise, but that's another story for another day. But, yeah, we appreciate y'all for tuning in.
I'm going to let you have it, bro. I'm going to let you have it today. But, yeah, we do appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll be doing stuff like this all throughout the off season. We're actually about to record another segment. Y'all hear these at 2 different times, and it'll be 2 different videos or whatever may have you. But we're going to continue to do videos like this, especially once we finally find a head coach. We'll do a emergency podcast, so to speak, quote unquote. Once that is finalized, the draft, things of that nature. So. This has been fun. This has been fun. I mean, we take all of the emotions out because we didn't play this week, obviously.
Yeah.
And we just talk Panther football, man. Just talk Panther football. So we do appreciate you guys being here. Again, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already at the G2S Network. Follow on Instagram, TikTok, @ForPanthersFansOnly. And again, thank you all for being here. I'm your host, JJ.
I'm your co-host, Terrence. We appreciate y'all for tuning in. Continue to support. I mean, we're going to, like JJ said, we're going to continue bringing content to you guys. But, yeah, it's been a great season. I mean, we're not going anywhere. We're still here. So we appreciate y'all.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Was when